Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doom Patrol. A great episode, a lot of interesting things, so let's break it down. I thought it was kind of very interesting from the beginning because obviously Darren Jones is his whole idea taking Cyborg and everything, but everyone else has reservations about it because it's like, well, for one, it would ruin their relationship with Star Labs, so that's one. But other than that, it's also because like you're kidnapping such a public figure. Like he's kind of well known as kind of a superhero, obviously kind of been scouted potentially by the Justice League and stuff like that. So he's kind of a high profile target, but I guess he's still low enough on the tier where it's like, yeah, as long as we do it discreetly. Because when Silas calls later on, basically every government agency denies knowing anything. So whether they really didn't know because the Bureau of Normalcy really handled this stuff really discreetly, or the fact is they didn't want to get involved in this whole situation. But regardless, which is interesting because Silas does get mixed up in this, even though like everyone has the reluctancy to want to tell Silas because it's like, yeah, he's kind of a dick, and you know Vic wouldn't want his dad involved in this anyway. But ultimately, he gets involved and finds out, like, oh, what's happening to Vic. Vic not trusting him. Vic worried that, like, the, cybernetics are going to take over, that he's going to become more machine than human. Obviously, feeding into that future he saw, drawn by Jane and everything. So the team comes up with a plan to infiltrate. And I kind of figured from the beginning it had to be like a double blind of like, oh, it looks like they're getting double crossed by Silas. But then I was like, yeah, but notice how one person's missing the entire time. I was like, Rita's not there. So that was kind of part of the plan and everything. But it was kind of interesting because like, isn't this the first time Larry and the Spirit have ever been separated, without... But like Larry was conscious. Like, how did that happen? Like, can he actually operate like, I guess maybe they did something to him. Maybe it's because the way the dude that was experimenting on him was kind of talking beforehand. It seems like obviously they did a lot of stuff to him before. So maybe it's a combination of that, or maybe it's something specific that they have. But Larry was able to be up and about. Like, he's never like that. He's always knocked out when the spirit's out of him. But I guess it's a different situation because I guess when the spirit's in a certain state like that, maybe it doesn't necessarily just have to be the spirit leaving his body. I'm assuming it is, but maybe it's just like the spirit being fully active kind of shuts him down. But I think it is purely just it leaving his body. I don't know. It just was kind of interesting to me because it's interesting too because in the end he ends up grabbing the spirit. He's like, "You're coming with me, buddy," which is interesting. If you got Larry from like the beginning, earlier episodes in this season, he would have left his spirit behind because he'd be like, oh, I'm finally free of it and stuff like that. I mean, granted, he's still being in this situation is because it's something I do constantly forget. His body sends out large amounts of radiation. Like, that's the whole point. They want to use him as like a radioactive bomb and stuff like that because like he's got so much nuclear energy built up inside of himself. So I was thinking, I kind of keep forgetting that aspect about him. So it's not just a spirit, it's also him himself that's like that. But nevertheless, probably one of my favorites was Cliff's situation of being like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, after everything I've been through, everything I've experienced, you're not going to bother me. And she's kind of like, yeah, he's obsolete and everything about him's not special. He's like, wait, what? And she's poking the pride. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, the fact is, I'm a brain inside of a robot. And it's like, you're not the first brain we've seen. She's like, basically since the Nixon era, they've been stuffing brains into different people into things, and it's like, oh yeah, a brain and a toaster is kind of a favorite of hers because it's like, it's very sarcastic and they use it on the newbies, and it's like brain and a toaster, and it kind of makes Cliff, you see, it kind of hurts his feelings because it makes him feel not special. And she's like, yeah, you go to the scrapyard. I even love it, her being like, him trying to make excuses. It's like, I'm a genius because why else would they save my brain? And then she gives him a math equation. She's like, wait, what? You said 2 trains, right? And she's like, that's high school level. He's like, well, I'm not like some mathematician or something. It's like, damn you asshole, or something like that. I loved it. That's how she broke him, essentially, by poking at his insecurities and stuff like, wait, what? And he's like, no, I'm cool. I'm like, look at me, I'm amazing and stuff like that. Just kind of basically like, oh, his circuitry, his body, all of it just being nothing special. And Jane is being held by the dude. She broke his arm, and he's threatening to cut her up and everything. And there's even this reference to Reservoir Dogs where he was like dancing to music, and she's like, fine, we get it. You saw Reservoir Dogs, which I didn't catch that reference immediately because I've seen Reservoir Dogs, but only in bits and pieces. I don't think I've ever seen that movie all the way through. I would have never gotten that reference. But I just love that he's getting super into it and Jay's just acting all bored and everything. I love it. And what happens is the radio kind of gets a little messed up. He smacks it and lo and behold, the music changed. And lo and behold, comes out freaking Karen. I love it. And then she's kind of like, this is my favorite song. Well, now it's our song. And she's like, oh, I love you, Doug. He's like, my name's Dirk. And she's like, no, that's exactly what I said. I love that even under this situation, if she's manipulating some other guy, getting him under her control, it's like in her fantasized notion, it's like, oh, because Doug is the one that matters, so every guy she meets will be Doug. And it's like, what's your favorite book? We'll say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. The Fault in Our Stars. Oh, we were so meant to be together. I was like, I love this, dude. It's so good. I love that Rita was secretly hiding inside a cliff the entire time. I was like, yo, that's crazy. I was like wondering where Rita was going to be in this whole situation. And she's like, ew, gross. It's terrible in there. He's like, I told Vic to put a freshener in there. It's not me. That's for the rat being inside of me. And she's like, okay, avert your eyes. And he's like, huh? Oh, yeah. It's like, wow, what was it? He said, you don't moisturize, do you? She's like, Cliff. I love that. And also that he's like, that woman, that scientist has the audacity to belittle you, make you feel useless. And then she comes in and Rita turns off the magnet and he drops on top of her. It seems like it probably wasn't a super bloody death because we didn't see blood splatter everywhere. Just because I assume she just got crushed to death. I doubt she got knocked out. I'm sure with that much, the height and, his body being made of what it's made of, she probably got crushed. Which you kind of feel bad because you're like, oh, I like her. She's so cheeky. She's kind of an asshole, but I love that cheekiness about her. Because she's kind of a bad guy considering the fact that she's part of, the Bureau of Normalcy and everything like that. So, very interesting turn of events in that regard. I've been love it being like, Karen, you're here, and Dirk being like, wait, are these people bothering you? She's like, yes. It's like, we're trying to escape and everything. You popping up is not part of the plan, and you're screwing things up by making it so like Dirk is about to shoot them, but luckily Karen got dealt with quickly. To be fair, Jane wasn't really, herself at the time. Obviously, she was trying to avoid, coming back to the surface, so that's why she didn't kind of step up when Karen took control. Because I guess Jane's the one that can kind of wrestle back control the most from Karen, because she snapped back pretty damn quickly. Like, the other personalities kind of got buried by her. Like, when Hammerhead came out, she came out for a little bit, but then, like, immediately got buried by Karen before. But now I think that's kind of who Jane is. That's who she represents for Kay. So I think that's why she's the primary personality, so that role kind of gives you a little more weight, and I think she kind of has top priority, so she ended up just kind of being able to knock Karen back down. So, I mean, to be fair, she's not locked up anymore, so, I mean, she obviously got released from the jail cell like that episode, but still. There's also the butt situation. I thought I heard that General is like, but don't piss off the butts. I'm like, what? What is he talking about? I was like, is it General a little crazy or something like that? And it's like, no, he meant it literally because the butts get free and they start eating people. And it's like, what the fuck? And even in General, like after finding this out, he kills himself. I'm like, were you doing that because of everything at the ant farm went to shit? Or is it specifically because the butts got free that you're like, what have we done? We've released monsters on the world. That's what I'm wondering, because it seemed like he did that immediately after learning the butts are free, sir. So it's like, that's weird and disturbing on so many damn levels. What's interesting though is obviously like they ended up releasing a lot of the people there at the ant farm, and that included like that one room they made a point to kind of point out was like 418. I'm sure that's like a DC reference and I'm just not getting. It looked like a black room, but it looked like there were eyeballs everywhere. I have no idea what that's a reference to, but I assume because they made such a point to point it out. I'm sure if you look at it, if you're well versed, you'll be like, oh, is that supposed to be so and so? Like maybe. Which is interesting. They did release a lot of people with abilities and stuff like that into the world. Granted, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of them are innocent people, but you still don't know like how many of them are going to be, an issue going forward. But that's kind of an issue for another day. What ended up being interesting is obviously everything going on with Vic, because Vic was kind of going crazy the entire episode because he's hearing Grid, but Grid's not supposed to be with him. It seems like something's definitely off, to the point that the dude that's kind of like his roommate, which that shows you how long people are there sometimes. That dude was like, I've been here since like, what was it, the 50s? Maybe before, no, it was like the 60s, and he was like, or maybe it was before then. So he's been there like a good chunk of time, decades. And so But Vic's dealing with the whole Grid situation because Grid's trying to reboot him, and now he's stressing because like I'm becoming more and more machine. What was really interesting, and I guess that should have been the keynote, is like 772 could hear it, and I'm like, but that's supposed to be something only in his head. So I don't think it was just something in his head. Like either that or 772 has the power to kind of hear things. Because in the grand scheme of things, like obviously like his dad comes there to save him. He's like, here's Grid, you need to let me save you. But he hears a recording that is like, oh, it's his dad being like, oh, I don't care if my son ends up becoming 100% machine. You think I care and stuff like that. And so consumed by everything, he ends up punching his dad and ended up inadvertently killing him. And it seems like it was all part of Mr. Nobody's plan. Like from the beginning, it's like, oh, like, you know, he talked about Vic's origin story. Now it's kind of like, oh, his origin story is well-rounded now. The tragedy, you know, reached its conclusion, and now we've got the birth of a real hero. You know, it's kind of like you going through all the hardship rounded out his story and kind of be like, oh, we should forget Black Box. We should take this to Broadway. It's like, you were a major asshole for doing that. But like I said, in the grand scheme of things, it makes sense. I mean, because it's like, because for him, it's like, I guess because of the timing and stuff like that, and I guess that was the whole point, what Mr. Nobody could pluck at was like, oh, he got reset, and ever since then, it was basically him worried. It's like, because in the back of his mind, he always thought like, oh, my dad has this control over me, he wants this and that from me, I can't be my own person because of him. So it started, the whole situation started, especially when he started losing more and more control, it started feeding more into those doubts and fears that he had. So none of it was real, it was just stuff that Mr. Nobody was creating. And I guess, once again, that explains why 772 could hear it. I wonder, was it because like, it wasn't just in Vic's head. Mr. Nobody was literally audibly like getting Grid to say that out loud. It wasn't just in his head. That, or like I said, 772 can read minds or something like that. So that's why he was able to hear that. Or maybe he could just link up with whatever it is Mr. Nobody's whole thing is. Like that kind of like world altering ability and stuff like that. Maybe he can kind of tap into it on like that psychic level or something. I have no idea. But now it's a situation that, you know, Vic has now killed his dad. And the sad thing is, like, his dad, all his dad did, like, his dad might have seemed like a dick, but it's just because he wanted to do all he could to protect his son because he loved his son. And that's just, it's sad to see things kind of end up this way, especially, you know, Vic being so, you know, I'm curious to see what Vic's going to say. Like, obviously the team's there to see Silas's dead body, but it's like, you know, Larry kind of stops him from going forward. So the question then becomes like, is Vic going to explain exactly what happened? Is this going to feed everyone's fears? Because I don't think it will, because it means that everything that happened with Mr. Nobody was BS at the beginning. I mean, maybe that painting that James showed wasn't supposed to be representative of the fact is of it. Maybe it was supposed to be representative of this situation, Mr. Nobody coming after all of them, and sure, and like, you know, Vic being the only one left, that basically he might be the last one that Mr. Nobody leaves alive. That's what I was thinking, was kind of like, oh, Vic was surrounded by other people. But because like I said, the painting got interpreted as like, oh, him killing all those people. I didn't interpret that, but it's definitely not going to play out that way now because he knows Mr. Nobody was messing with his head. I mean, for him, it's like, it's kind of a repeat of the Doom Patrol. And I'm curious to see what does happen to Vic from here. Will he kind of shut down? Will he never forgive himself? Will he kind of go into that Doom Patrol situation of like kind of locking himself away and just never being the same because of Mr. Nobody? Like, I am very curious to see where things take him, especially now he has to go on without his dad. Like, because he spent so much time in such having issues with his dad that, you know, you take time like that for granted, and now he can never get that time back, you know. So I'm curious which way he's going to lean. Is he going to go full-blown revenge, or is he going to shut down? It's definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, it was kind of a fun episode in those certain regards, but then you get to that, and it's just kind of heartbreaking to see, you know, Cyborg's story play out like that. I'm wondering, is that typically how his story goes, or is that just something they're doing for the show? I mean, because obviously his dad's still alive, because even like Justice League, the movie, like his dad was alive. So I don't know. Maybe it happens in certain storylines, or maybe this is just something Doom Patrol specific. So it does beg the question. I am curious though, is there a possibility of there being some truth to that? Could Grid ever make him 100% cybernetic and stuff like that? Could that be a route that Vic would want to go down, because maybe he doesn't want to be human anymore, because it's like, yeah, being human just causes him pain, so maybe being robot might be what he needs to fight Mr. Nobody and get revenge. Might see that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward. Especially with the Bureau of Normalcy, because it seems like this was a big bloated, and whether 100% done or not, I mean, the butts kind of did a lot of damage. I'm sure Darren got pushed into a room with some other creature, so along with the Butts. So I don't know if I doubt we'll see any more of him, but I don't know if the entire. I mean, we saw the general kill himself, so it's like a lot of people are probably going to distance themselves from this. So this might be the end of the Bureau of Normalcy. We'll have to ultimately have to wait and see. So. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.